Pay no attention to my hands. So, of course, the title of the talk that Dean asked me to prepare in 48 hours is Why MAGA America Needs Catholic Louisiana. Well, the answer to that question is simple. Because we're Catholic, okay? Talk's over. You are free to go. Seriously, where's the gentleman? What's your name? Trey. Yes. Trey and I were talking. You were at Plum Sucker, right?
Yes.
Okay. Most people don't know this, and the reason I'm here today, I'm working on a documentary. It's 5 parts. It's called The Amazing, Incredible Secret History of Catholic New Orleans. And it's because this city is the most Catholic city in the United States. It's not even close. And by the time I'm done here today, I told Trey, I said, but if I will accomplish my mission if I make a history buff out of you. So if I make a New Orleans Catholic history buff out of all of you, then we'll call this a success, regardless of how many people are here. So in France is known as the eldest daughter. Well, if France is the eldest daughter of the church and Louisiana is her most proud New World colony, then Louisiana is the eldest granddaughter of the church. So has anyone ever thought about this? No. If France is the eldest daughter, then we're the eldest granddaughter because France basically begot us. Formed us, not begot. That's something that's holy. I believe this is true, and I can demonstrate it to you, that our grandparents knew it to be true and took it seriously. Louisiana existed as a functioning Catholic state from its discovery by De La Salle on April the 8th, 1681. If you don't know the date, commit that to memory. And then the founding of New Orleans by, now don't say this incorrectly, we're all good Frenchmen. Do not say Bienville, it's Bienville. Good village, good city is what that means, Bienville. So if you pronounce his name, if you go to France and say Bienville, they're not going to know who you're talking about. So that's in 1721, and then all the way, almost up until World War II, this is the most Catholic city on this continent. Maybe at one time Mexico City because of Our Lady of Guadalupe, but we have our own Our Lady of Guadalupe, which I will tell you about, and I'm sure you all know. Let me give you some stats about Catholic Louisiana. From 1850 to 1990, Louisiana ranked a high of 18th and a low of 21st in U.S. population by state. You don't think of this little state as being that large. We were in the top 20, basically, for almost our existence until Katrina took us out. And that is really a demographic fact. At the same time frame, Catholic New Orleans was the 5th largest city in the United States. Anybody know that? Did you know that? That was in 1850. She was the country's 5th largest city all the way up until the War of Northern Aggression decimated her. And she never completely recovered. And the reason she didn't completely recover is because so many of our young men were killed. So you take almost a third of all the men that lived in this city out by war. And you take out a third of the husbands, basically, future and present. So the city never really recovered. But she still was in the top 15 all the way up until 1970. So what happened between 1960 and 1970? Thank you. Or we could blame the council all we want, or we could just blame the fact that Catholics got lazy, modernity hit, and we stopped taking the faith seriously, as our forefathers did. We'll blame the council, okay. Now listen to this. We lead the United States. These are facts. And I will provide a copy of this to Dean, and you can check my footnotes if you'd like. The state of Louisiana leads the United States in the name of children after saints. There are more Josephs and Maries born and named in Louisiana as a percentage of the population than in any state in the Union. How many of you know a Joseph? How many of you know a Marie? Keep your hand up if you know 10 Maries. Keep your hand up if you know 10 Josephs. Joseph and Marie, the #1 names. Some facts about Catholic Louisiana and Catholic New Orleans. The first cathedral in the United States was built where? Right there, New Orleans, St. Louis Cathedral. It's in one of my documentaries. The scripts are all written. We're gathering all the photographs and the videos and everything. The story of St. Louis Cathedral should be told. Somebody should come here and make a major motion picture. It's absolutely, this church is an incredible story and should be told. I'll volunteer. The first religious order that practiced in the United States practiced where? Here. The Ursulines. They came in Bienville comes in 1721. He sends a letter to the Sun King, the King Louis XIV. He says, I need some sisters. King Louis asks his aide-de-camp who he should consult. And he says the Ursulines, or Ursulines. They go to the convent in France, and they ask the Mother Superior. She agrees. They say a bunch of prayers and novenas. And guess who they prayed to? Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and a little statue about this tall called Little Sweetheart. It's at your... everyone should have a devotion and a picture somewhere of Little Sweetheart. So the first functioning religious order in the United States is here in New Orleans. It's still here. Unfortunately, the Ursulines don't have... Are there any sisters left?
We have two.
Do you? Okay.
We have two. And there's no novitiates in this country.
We will know when the faith is coming back in earnest when the Ursulines return, I believe, to New Orleans. More facts. Well, the first all-male functioning religious order in the United States is in New Orleans. Do you know? Somebody said yes?
Jesuit.
The Capuchins. Père Antoine is sent here from Spain as the Capuchin friar, who was the first pastor at St. Louis Cathedral. Père Antoine. Most people don't know this. Go to St. Louis Cathedral, look at it, look to the right. Of course, the sign has been destroyed by drunks. But the sign is there, and it says what? Père Antoine Alley. Père Antoine was the head of the Capuchin order that they sent here, so that we had males and females in the 18th century in New Orleans spreading the faith. Fact. We started the Holy Face devotion in this city for the world under Archbishop Napoleon Perche. It'll be in my documentary. We'll be here all day if I tell you the whole story. Cliff Note version, Archbishop Napoleon Perche was from France. He was brought here by the Holy Father, asked him to come and take over after our second Archbishop died. He did. He heard what was going on in Tours, with the Holy Man of Tours, Louis Dupont, and he went, and he saw the miracles, and he was blown away. He asked the Holy Father for a copy of the Holy Face. It was sent here, and the devotion began. Archbishop Perche brought in and began the Carmelite order of the city of New Orleans, and he appointed them to perpetual adoration of that particular copy, which is wax stamped by Leo XIII. And the first time I came here and met Father, it's actually here. The one that you guys have on Sunday, I cross-referenced it to the existing photographs of the ones that the sisters have at the Carmelite. That's the one. So the ones that you guys have here on Sunday is the copy stamped by Leo XIII that came here to New Orleans that the sisters had for over 100 years. Cool, right? We hosted the first Eucharistic Congress in the United States in 1936. There are books that the Archdiocese have in the library. It's about that thick. It covers the whole thing. Here's a couple of little cool tidbits for that. There were 70,000 Catholic school children in the procession down Canal Boulevard, Canal Street, from Tad Gormley Stadium where they had the Mass. And they processed down Canal. Who took the photograph? It's a famous photograph of the procession. It was the first aerial photograph taken by the Goodyear blimp. The Goodyear blimp was here, took a picture. You can still Google it. Google Goodyear blimp, New Orleans Eucharistic Congress. You'll see the photograph.
What year was that?
1936. 1936. We're home to two blesseds, Henri de Lille, Xavier Silos, correct? The first Catholic all-girls college was formed here in New Orleans and is Xavier. There's a whole other sheet of these stats here. The first Catholic school in the United States and on this continent for colored boys is St. Augustine, still open. 1857 is when St. Augustine was consecrated. Ground was consecrated. They began construction on the church. Now, what an irony here. 1857, that's before the War of Northern Aggression, yet all white people in the South are racist, bigots, hick hayseeds, etc., and yet the Archdiocese of New Orleans was compelled to open a school for Catholic colored boys, and it's still there today. The St. Augustine Marching Band is one of the most famous in the United States. It's requested at the Rose Bowl, for example. They still request the band. Let us hope that there's more going on there than the band. St. Augustine is my patron and my confirmation saint, too. The first newspaper that was published regularly here in the city of New Orleans was a Catholic newspaper called Propagateur Catholique, started by Archbishop Napoleon Perche again. Here's another amazing secret no one will believe. What language was it published in? French. There was no English translation. If you lived in New Orleans in the 18th century, well, first of all, if you came here between when Bienville settled this place, the city, in 1721 and 1792, the Spanish took over in the 1730s because the French were low on cash, and the English army was marauding around the world, and the colonialism was on fire. And King Louis was afraid that the English were going to try and come and take this city. Because Louisiana, remember, went all the way up to Canada. And so the French were mortified that the English had a bigger navy than the French did, and they would come here and they would take Louisiana. So the King Louis basically went to, I know the name of the Spanish king, but I forget, it might have been King Charles, and said, look, I'll just lease it to you. And they both agreed. It's a funny story. Everyone in Europe hates the English. If you go to Scotland and you find real Scottish men, they'll tell you, like, we don't have anything in common with the Irish other than we both hate the English. Everyone hates the English. So the Spanish didn't want the English to get Louisiana, and neither did the French. So the Spanish came here and took it over. Basically, the French leased it to the Spanish. So in 1791, a Governor Miro, there's a Miro Street here, right? Governor Miro says, I need more people here. I need more population. He appeals to the king and to the Pope. I said, can we allow Protestants to come in? From 1721 to 1791, this is an exclusively Catholic colony. You cannot apply for residence or for a homestead in Louisiana unless you are practicing Catholic. True story. And everybody getting a nice little dose of history that you didn't know? So, New Orleans, the first newspaper was the Propagateur Catholique, which basically means the Times, the Catholic Times is basically what it means. It is said, okay, so we're going to kind of fast forward into the 19th century now, or then towards the end of the 19th century. So it is said that if you want to destroy a people and a culture, let me go off script here for just a second. You guys got a little time this morning? Okay. The city of New Orleans, all the way up into the War of Northern Aggression, which she used to have a couple of nicknames. I'll give you just one or two that I know. The cradle of Catholicism in the Mississippi River Valley. The crown jewel of the South. Why was she the crown jewel of the South? Because she was Catholic. And because she had that river right there, and we had the port, and they had the tremendous resources here. We are the most blessed people on this continent with the resources that we have at our disposal. They didn't even know about oil at the time. They knew nothing about it. If you want to destroy a culture, any of you that are history or war buffs, and you want to take over a people, what's the most surefire way to do it other than killing them all? Take their language. Take their language and make them talk yours. The city of New Orleans was anglicized in the 19th century. All the way up until the 1920s, if you go to Acadiana, there ain't nobody speaking English there. English is the second language. The legislature had to pass laws to their eternal shame, basically shaming the French of our beloved French in this state, shaming them into forcing them to make English first language. I mean, there are stories and family histories of kids being put into corners at school and made fun of and beaten, and the teachers mocking them because they didn't know English, because they were from childhood, from birth, they were taught French. So if you want to subjugate a culture, take their language from them, make them learn yours, and that's pretty much what they did here. So here's another small fact. We're the eldest granddaughter of the church, and we are French at the end of the day. At the end of the 18th century, what's going on in France? The Great Terror, the French Revolution. Most people don't know this because they hear you watch Les Miserables or something, and you think, oh, liberté, fraternité, égalité. Awful. The purpose of the French Revolution was to kill Catholicism in France. And they did a pretty good job. This was an effort that was, regardless of what anyone tells you, this was an effort in France led by, and look, Voltaire could not have imagined when he was ginning this anti-Catholic spirit up, he could not have imagined a Robespierre. He could not have imagined that they would invent the guillotine. He could not have imagined how many people would be taken over by demons, literally, and they would execute hundreds of thousands of people, thousands of priests like Father. That they would do the most heinous things to them. Well, you think the Masons didn't know that we were the granddaughter? They sent Masons here to do the same thing. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So, the Freemasons came to New Orleans. They set their sights on the Crescent City, and they formed their first lodge, the Étoile Polaire, the Polar Star, #1 lodge on Rampart Street in 1794. To do here what they were doing in France. There's a little known fact. The president of the lodge in the 1800s was Governor Claiborne. Claiborne Avenue, yes, that's who it's named for, who was he was just a rabid anti-Catholic man. He was not. It's one of the few in this city that governed the city was not a Catholic. He was a Mason. Governor Claiborne was also the governor at the time that Louisiana gets admitted into the Union in 1812. As a matter of fact, it's kind of I live in St. Tammany. Any North Shore people here? St. Tammany refused. Florida Parishes Republic, right? St. Tammany refused to join the Louisiana in admission into the Union. Governor Claiborne in August of that same year just went, oh yeah, watch this. Just sent an army to St. Tammany and went like, you're in Louisiana now, we're just going to annex you. True story. Okay.
It's also interesting that there is no St. Tammany.
Well, there's a Tammany Hall in New York, because I looked it up, I'm like, who is St. Tammany? But do you know St. Landry Parish? There is a St. Landry. There actually is. Okay. That's I often wondered about, there's a Tammany Hall, but there is no St. Tammany. If you look up St. Tammany, all you'll get is the North Shore. So, okay, one more point about the history of New Orleans, and then we're going to do we'll do a little political philosophize. We'll try to tie this together. When Governor Miro decided that he needed bodies here, and they changed the law. They changed the law so that if you were an Anglican or whatever, you could come here under the agreement that any children that you had, you agreed, you had to sign a letter. They wouldn't give you the land. You agreed that your Anglican children would go to an Irish Catholic school. And the Irish were here. You kind of notice why we have an Irish channel. The Irish were, lots of Irish, lots of Italians in New Orleans, in Louisiana. Maybe if you invite me back, I'll give you a talk on Columbus Day and why we have it. The city of New Orleans is why we have Columbus Day. Because they executed 12 Italians after a trial at the Cabildo, because the Irishman was acquitted of murdering the sheriff of Orleans Parish, who was an Italian. And the Italian said, my pizza, the charter was rigged. And they got the 11 men on the jury, they hanged them. Right outside of St. Louis Cathedral. President Harrison hears about this. So they gave him a list of 5 Italians. Da Vinci, Columbus, Da Vinci, 2 other artists whose name escaped me, and an explorer, De Soto. Not De Soto because he was Spanish. And anyways, President Harrison chose Columbus. And that's why, as a piece, he said, our Italian-American heritage is so great that we should honor a great one. Let's honor Christopher Columbus. True story, but it happens because of a tragedy that occurred here. Anybody know the name of your Louisiana history, Bloody O'Reilly? This is in kind of that era. Okay. That'll be the last piece of history for now. So let's pick up on another subject here of why MAGA America needs Catholic Louisiana. So do we live in a republic or a democracy? Thank you. We live in a republic. Ben Franklin famously says when the mayor of Philadelphia, Eliza Powell, comes up to him after the federal convention is done and goes, well, Dr. Franklin, what do we have? A republic or a democracy or a monarchy? And he goes, a republic, if you can keep it. Supposedly, no historian's ever verified that, but it's a pretty good quote. It is a great story. We live in or we're supposed to live in a republic. Anyone know what the difference between a republic and a democracy is? Basically, in a republic, the state of Louisiana is a republic of itself, and we'll get into that. In a republic, majority does not rule. There are rules. Everyone obeys the rules. It's almost impossible to change them. You don't have legislatures for the purpose of changing rules in a republic because everyone that joins the republic agrees basically to the conditions that you join under. In democracy, it's two wolves arguing over the hen house because there's two wolves or there's three wolves and only two chickens. So the wolves have outvoted, yeah, your dinner. And that's a democracy. St. Thomas Aquinas said it's not the worst form of government, a tyranny is, but it's a close second. So you don't want a democracy. So what about the state of Louisiana makes us so unique? At least 9 parishes in this state are named for Catholic saints. You probably all know them. I'll go over them. St. Bernard, St. Charles Parish, St. Helena, St. James Parish, St. John the Baptist, St. Landry Parish, St. Martin Parish, St. Mary Parish. Then there's Ascension, Assumption, and Evangeline. Now, most people go, Evangeline is not Catholic. Yes, it is. Longfellow wrote the poem Evangeline after he met a Catholic girl whose name was Evangeline. He was so blown away by her piety that he says, I wanted to write a story about Catholic Acadiana, so we called it Evangeline. So Evangeline Parish is named for Evangeline, the Catholic girl, who is the subject of the book. So we're going to throw Evangeline in there. Well, wait a minute, we're not finished yet. Now you probably think that's the end of the list. It's not. East and West Carroll parishes. What's that street down there named for, Carrollton Avenue? Charles Carroll of Carrollton, the only Catholic to sign the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Who is his brother? Father? Yes. Bishop Carroll, the Bishop Carroll Catechism. East Carroll Parish, West Carroll, well, I got that backwards. East Carroll Parish, West Carroll Parish, Catholics named for Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Wait, we're not finished. East and West Feliciana. That was a head scratcher. Okay, why Feliciana? That parish is named for the saintly wife of the Spanish governor, another man trying to be holy, of Governor Galvez. So Feliciana is named for another pious Catholic woman. Felicity was her name, so Feliciana. We're not finished. DeSoto Parish. DeSoto Parish is named for the very devout Catholic explorer, Spanish explorer, DeSoto. We're not done. LaSalle Parish. Who discovered Louisiana? De La Salle. What's the date? Told you to memorize it. You're all failures to me. April 8th, 1681. LaSalle was devout. In the diary that was carried by the survivor of his party, it is noted that when they awake, they have their little breakfast, they say Angelus, they go out wherever they're traveling to. At noon, they stop, they say Angelus. At 3, they stop, they say Angelus. De La Salle was actually, from the time he was 15 to the time he was 17, was actually in a Jesuit seminary. He was a seminarian, decided that, and he had to get a pardon from the Pope. He actually, to get out of seminary at that time was if you committed, it was very difficult. He said he wanted to be explorer, not the Pope. He had to get it from the king, and King Louis said, okay, and sent him to Lake Champlain. Champlain Catholic. All of these guys, they're all Catholics. The Protestants discovered nothing other than misery and how to kill Indians. Bienville Parish, Catholic, named for the very holy Bienville. Iberville, this is a good one. Who's Iberville? Anybody know?
His brother.
Thank you, Beyond V's brother. The brothers were very holy. The brothers are the ones that said we need to bring the Ursulines here. And they're the ones that wrote the letter. Acadia. What is Acadia Parish named for? The Acadians. There's no dispute that the Acadians were holy French people. They were like the tradies of the 18th century. The French went, you guys are too traditional, get out. So they went to Nova Scotia, and then the English found them, and they were making friends with the Indians. I'm an Acadiana. My great-grandmother, 12 generations back, is a Micmac Indian. You know what that means? I am more Indian, Native American Indian, than Elizabeth Warren will ever be. But I actually have, it's a true story. In the English, the Protestants in New England hated the fact, because all they did was kill Indians. The Indians, because they didn't have the Holy Ghost, which we're going to have tomorrow, right? They didn't have the sacraments and all that, because they were part of the heretical Anglican Church. And some of them even worse, the Pilgrims, and then you get the Quakers and all the other heresies that come off of this. But the French Catholic, the Acadia, or Acadie, as the French say, Acadie, were loved. They loved the Indians loved them back. When they would run out of food, the Indians would take them in. And the Protestants in New England in 1757, and it's called the Great Diaspora, kicked them all out, went arrested all the Acadia in Front Royal, and took them and put them on prison ships. Many of them died, and the ones that survived, they shipped back to France. France still doesn't want them, and so the Spanish king, who's running Louisiana at the time, the Spanish king says, you can go to my lovely Louisiana, and that's how the Acadians get here. Anybody know that story? It's a wonderful story. And then they get here, and my grandfather, my 12 generations back, his name was Guidry. He was a Guidry, Claude Guidry. T. Claude, they called him. And T. Claude settled in New Iberia, as did thousands of other French Catholics. So anything that's named for the Acadians is Catholic. And if not, who's going to change my list for me? Nobody. And then finally, Orleans. Orleans is named for Orleans in France, which is named for Philippe, the Duke, the Archduke Philippe, another Catholic. But at the end of the day, when we think, especially in the modern world now, when we think Orleans, what do you think? Jeanne d'Arc. Saint Jeanne d'Arc, the Maid of Orleans. So another one. So if we add all that up, that's over one third of all parishes in the state of Louisiana are named for Catholics. But wait a minute. The original 19 parishes here in the state of Louisiana, of the original 19, of the names I just gave you, 11 of them are in the original 19 that was admitted into the Union in 1812. That's 60+% of then Louisiana is Catholic. That's a pretty bold statement there. So when somebody says, Louisiana is not a Catholic, yes, it is. And it's the most Catholic state in the Union and remains so today. So let's talk about the structure here. A word about using this very Catholic structure and fighting for it to become more explicitly Catholic. Now, that's not my idea. First of all, why do we have parishes and not counties? Church structure. Father is St. Patrick Parish. In the North Shore, we have St. Anselm, and all man. This, you can't swing a dead cat by the tail in this city and not hit something Catholic or a church. So we have a parish structure. Parish is basically an old feudal system of record keeping and very, very hands-off government. Your parish, you were baptized, you were confirmed, you were married, and you were buried in your parish. And your parish kept records of all of it. There was no government house, there was no city hall, there was the parish church, and the records of everything that you did in your life were kept at the parish. So the French brought, the eldest granddaughters brought the parish system here. And again, it's very, very, it was lax. We were a great place to practice, to really be free here in Louisiana, because we did have the parish system. So when you think parish, well, you guys have parishes and not counties. Well, yeah, it's from the old Catholic, old world Christendom system of government, which really wasn't a system of government. How many of you know who Orestes Brownson was? Okay, you're going to have to invite me back a couple of times, Dean. Orestes Brownson was the greatest Catholic intellectual mind of the 19th century. Now, he began life as a fire-breathing, tent revival Protestant evangelical. Some say he was a Methodist. I've never been able to actually confirm that. He had an epiphany, and he converted to the Catholic faith. And this guy was genius. I mean, like jet fuel, intellectual genius. And he was I forget the school that he was a professor of, philosophy and history. Orestes Brownson converts to the faith and then looks at the United States and goes, what is going on here? We're not much right. And this is in the 1840s. And so Brownson starts a magazine called the Brownson Quarterly. And Brownson's purpose for the Brownson Quarterly is the conversion of the United States to the Catholic faith. He spent the last third of his life writing books and treatises, looking at democracy and finding the faults in it and why it wouldn't work, and then advocating for what Catholicism will. And if you're going to have a system of government like we had, I mean, even John Adams gets this right, you have to have Christianity. It won't work without Christianity. You have to have the Christian faith. When they say the Christian faith, you know, they love just throwing that out like with the big blanket, with the Christian faith. We should always remember to say, no, it's the Catholic faith. You guys took it and turned it into that. The Catholic faith has not, for all practical intents and purposes, has not changed. I mean, there's some novelties that have been added to it, but what our forefathers believed and worshipped under, we believe, which is why, who brought the creed? The creed, the beautiful creed that we recited when we started. We all believe everything in that creed, right? When you sing the creed on Sunday, Credo in Unum Deum, all right, quick trivia question. Let's test your catechism. How many parts are in the creed? 12. There's 12 promises in the creed. There's 12 things you're affirming in the creed. Why do we have dozens of eggs? Because there was a dozen apostles. You can't, there's nothing in the modern world that didn't come from Catholics. Nothing. Things that come in threes. Well, in the creed that we did today, there's a Trinity, right? You think about it, there's Michael, he wrote the book, Everything is Catholic, Michael Fultz. Get that book. I sell it in my bookstore. Everything is Catholic. When you start thinking about it, everything. There's almost no politeness that's not something from the Catholic faith. So I want to read you a letter about democracy that Brownson wrote to two of his sons. So this is a cut and paste between one letter that he wrote to son number 2, like the Charlie Chan movies. Oh, son number 2. He wrote to son number 2 and son number 4 or 5. This is all a long quote, but it's worth reading. Quote, I have ceased to believe at all in democracy. Think with your countryman, Fisher Ames, that it is an illuminated hell, and say what we will of it. It is simply the logical political development of Protestantism. Popular self-government is a delusion, a humbug, an absurdity. The people need to be governed collectively as well as individually. Jacobinism is Calvinism. I'll just pause right there real quick. What were the French anti-Catholic wackos in the Revolution called? The Jacobins, correct. The new Jacobins were here in New Orleans. We have Jacobins today. We have the FBI is filled with Jacobins investigating radical traditional Catholics. Those are Jacobins. Call them what they are. Jacobinism is Calvinism, without its long face, pious garb, and guttural tone. And evangelicalism, the present form of Calvinism, is seeking through Calvinism to establish in our republic the most complete and odious civil and religious despotism, and that too by the assistance of Patty. Father Heckner's notion that democracy is favorable to Catholicity is worse than foolish. Democracy rests on popular opinion and never looks beyond, and no people that makes popular opinion its criterion of right and wrong is or can be Catholic. You should underscore that and commit that to memory. No people that make popular opinion its criterion of right and wrong can be Catholic. I'd give you one word that illustrates that: abortion. Oh, but it's a majority opinion. I don't care. It's wrong. Boy, we live in a democracy. To kill babies. You see, and Brownson couldn't have known what would happen 100 years after he died. Catholicity spreads among a people only in proportion as they habitually act from the law of God, which is above kings and peoples, alike above popular opinion and the pleasure of the prince. The Holy Father is a prisoner. I think that he would have done better to have followed my advice in 1860. But still, he is mightier now than he has ever been before, and his influence on both the Catholic and non-Catholic mind is greater than ever. Satan is never more signally defeated than when he has won his victory. You know, I had to read that a couple of times and think about that. When is Satan defeated when he's won his victory? You'd have to kind of meditate on that one, but it does make sense if you kind of think it out. The sovereigns of Europe will not long consent. Well, I don't want to leave you hanging on that. There is no satisfying a physical, lustful, disordered way of thinking. You can't satisfy it. It's like Oliveira Planio Correa, the head of the TFP, the man that founded the TFP, wrote a book called Revolution and Counter-Revolution. The revolution can't stop itself. It's impossible. The only thing the revolution can do is burn itself out. A counter-revolution can stop it, but then a counter-revolution will be tempted to also have a revolution, which is why we're never in favor, even of the American Revolution, even though it turned out okay, you're never in favor of revolution. So when someone says, we want a revolution, you don't want a revolution. You don't need a revolution to get back to Catholicity, by the way, to live under the system of laws of Christendom. You just need a reversion. You need a commitment to it. We'll talk about that in a minute. The sovereigns of Europe will not long consent to have the spiritual head of so many millions of their subjects a prisoner, even a prisoner at large, of the King of Italy. And Catholics who are still Catholics pray earnestly for his freedom and become better Catholics. Then this is the second letter. In the first article, you'll get my view of the significance, causes, and remedies of the present state of things in the old Catholic nations of Europe. Or he couldn't imagine how messed up they are today. You know, we had D-Day was yesterday. We celebrated or commemorated rather D-Day. And on my radio show, I always play every year. I play Ronald Reagan's speech at Normandy because it makes me tear up, and he's just such a great orator. And you think about that and what those men did, the boys of Pointe du Hoc, that climbed those walls, and all the men that were just slaughtered by the German guns in D-Day. And they gave all of that life so that old Christendom can be openly and by invitation be invaded by the enemy, the Muslim. Islam, as Hilary Balak said, the greatest heresy is Protestantism, but its close kissing cousin and the most dangerous of all is Islam. And he wrote that book in 1930. And the Europeans have invited him in. And it's not going to end well. The church isn't there. You don't have any Don Johns or no Don John of Austria or a Holy Fleet to bail the Europeans out. You need to pray for our European brothers because it's going to get bad. England, I predict, will fall first. France may come to its senses. Maybe. Spain might come to its senses. Terrible situation. But Brownson is looking at this in 1847. I'm sorry, 1871, and going like, Europe is not going to turn out well. They were already turning. So when you think, yeah, the Second Vatican Council messed everything up, well, how come in 1871, Orestes Brownson is going, the Europeans are losing the faith? The restoration of the Pope to his temporal possessions will remedy nothing. Now, he's talking about in 1871, would Leo the 13th, or would have been, somebody's a historian here. So it was Benedict the Ninth, or no, Pius the Ninth before, right? Pius the Ninth, Leo the 13th. I think he's talking about Pius the Ninth, I believe. The restoration of the Pope to his temporal possessions will remedy nothing. The Catholics of Europe must learn that while the church does not need the state needs her and cannot subsist without her. That's a profound statement. They think they don't need the Catholic Church. Washington, Baton Rouge think that they desperately need the Catholic Church. And you should think this. Don't just say, oh, yeah, Mike Church said that. You should think that. You're a Catholic. when you were confirmed, when the archbishop or whoever confirmed you, you agreed to that creed. And I'll get into that in a minute here. They must learn that Christendom is gone from the Pope downwards, not to put their trust in princes. The church is now, if Catholics could see it, a missionary church in an infidel world, and is now compelled to begin anew and reconvert the people, for the princes can do nothing without them, close quote. So that's the end of Brownson's quote there. So the purpose of the title of this little talk here, and of me appearing here with you gentlemen and lady today, glad you could make it, it's not to give you a 60-minute vainglorious, here are the 12 steps to convert America kind of speech. It's more to kind of remind you, or maybe help you to know for the first time, the incredible secret history of Catholic New Orleans, and then work together amongst ourselves to restore what's been lost. Now, what I've said thus far sound good? If I crossed any lines, Father, if I committed any heresies while I was up here? So I gave you some history and some bullet points about Catholic Louisiana. And now that we got that little bit of history and good Catholic philosophy from Brownson under our belts, maybe even some exciting history that you didn't know about, let's talk about some of the things that we can do to make New Orleans, then Louisiana, Catholic again. That's the first thing. Second, how we might do so might lead the United States, or MAGA America, to do the same. Many people think that that may be an audacious plan, it may be an impossible program, it'll never work. And so since it seems it's so daunting, no one will go along with you, we're trying. Well, now remember, it's worth trying. And imagine if the apostles would have thought that after they saw St. Stephen being martyred. Mic drop. Seriously, they saw their beloved Stephen killed because he professed the gospel. Killed by the Jews right in front of them. Saul of Tarsus, was right there, we believe, right? Would you have gone like, hey, I believe it too, right? But they did. And they went out into the world. They went into what we call Syria today. They went into Lebanon. They went into what we call Iran today, which was Persia then. They went into Mesopotamia. They went into, remember, Rome was pagan. It was pagan Rome. They went to Rome. They went, St. James went all the way to Spain. And this is where our first Marian apparition is, Our Lady of the Pillar, Our Lady of the de Pilar, as they say in Spain. The apostles did not let St. Stephen's martyrdom stop them. Well, I don't know if you guys know any martyrs. So what's stopping us? This is my point. So one, continue your incredible devotion. I'm just a couple of suggestions. You guys have a devotion here, what is it, once a month to the Holy Face after Mass? It's beautiful. Everyone should, if you can find one, there's Holy Face prints out there. There's a lot of fakes. You got to watch what you're buying. Especially if somebody is trying to sell you something that, it's been blessed. You're not allowed to sell. This is called simony, right? You can't sell blessed items. You can exchange them for something and go like, well, I paid to get it out of a sorceress's hands. I gave her $200. You can reclaim the $200, right, Father? Is that right?
What do you mean?
Okay, so if you buy a holy item to get it out of the hands of someone that's evil, a relic, you can recoup your $200. Is that okay? Or you can't? Oh, okay, maybe you can't. So watch what you're buying if you buy a holy face. There are a lot of holy face prints out there, and they say, I got a wax seal. I can make a wax seal. I have wax in a stamp. You want a wax seal? I'll get you one by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Not even hard. What color do you want? I even have different color waxes. That's not hard to do. But I encourage you, my wife and I do it. I know many people have devotion to the Holy Faith. Holy Face, if you read the book, The Holy Man of Tours, all about Leo de Pont and the thousands of miracles. They ran out of room. They had to build rooms to put all the crutches and wheelchairs and things. And it's kind of like what happened in Montreal with St. Andre Bessette. at the St. Joseph Oratory, which is now the Oratory now. 2, continue and expand your devotion to Our Lady of Prompt Succor. Okay, another history lesson. There's only one approved Marian devotion specifically by name in the United States. Can you name it?
Lady of Prompt Succor?
Thank you. It wasn't a trick question. She's the only one. Coincidence? Again, Catholic Louisiana. St. Louis doesn't have one. We do. In 1894, on June the 21st, Pope Leo XIII, of blessed memory, issued a special decree delegating Archbishop Janssens to crown in his name and with solemn ceremony the miraculous statue of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, and that the devotion to Our Lady of Prompt Succor could be practiced in all of Louisiana. And going from memory now, and furthermore, that she is and can be stated as the queen and the patroness of all Louisiana. She's the only one. There's only one in the United States, and it's Our Lady of Prompt Succor, and we have her. And we have our little sweetheart statue right there. The amazing stories, the miracles. Most people think it was the fire, the Good Friday fire, 1794. That's not the miracle. The miracle was the Battle of New Orleans is one, and then there was another. There's 2 miracles that are confirmed that happened. The first, of course, being the Battle of New Orleans, and I forget what the other one is, but it'll be in my documentary. And the fact that we had the statue that is at Our Lady of Prompt Succor was commissioned for this date of Pope Leo. Number 3. So cultivate devotion to the Sacred Heart of our Lord and the Immaculate Heart of Our Lady, and work with the political class for the consecration of New Orleans and Louisiana to them both. I have it on good authority that Governor Landry, his father, is in or has been to many Latin masses in the Diocese of Lafayette, the Elder Landry. I know for a fact that his sister is a traddy, if you will. I think Governor Landry is pretty traditional himself. And I have it on pretty good authority that Governor Landry has also had the governor's mansion. He probably had to have it exercised with the fake Catholic that was in there before, Emperor Bell Bonaparte IV, as I call him. You probably had to have an exorcism, but I have it on good authority that it has been enrolled in the Sacred Heart. That's great. I will give, and I shouldn't talk so poorly about my brother, Catholic, John Bell Edwards. Bell Edwards did do one thing spectacular that almost no one knows. Who knows what happens on May the 1st? Dean, just put me on the calendar. I'll come back every month. May 1st, St. Joseph the Worker. Don't say May Day. That's communist. That's what the communists. Where did they get May the 1st from? Oh, that's a great. Father Hendricks gives a great sermon on that. I play it on Sundays on our radio station. Edwards got the legislature he wrote a proclamation, sent it to the legislature. They said, we can't pass it as a law. And he goes, I want a resolution. The legislature gave him a resolution proclaiming in the state of Louisiana is St. Joseph the Worker Day. If you want to take the day off, your boss can't fire you. This is a true story. And in 2022, Father Donald Calloway came here, who's the author of the book, 33-Day Consecration to St. Joseph, and is a real big proponent of devotion to the Holy Family and of St. Joseph. Father Calloway came here for the ceremony and blessed they had a big ceremony, and he blessed the document. They put it in a big golden frame. It's hanging in the Capitol building. The state of Louisiana has made one small step, and we have proclaimed May the 1st as St. Joseph the Worker Day. So, and I think the Protestants will not argue with us. We should all be telling our state representatives and state senators, I want you to get a resolution to consecrate the state of Louisiana for the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Imagine what a shockwave that will send throughout the rest of the Union and the world that Louisiana has been consecrated to the Sacred Heart. The Protestants do not have an issue with our adoration of our Lord. I do not believe that they would be opposed to proclaiming a Jesus Day. You just say, wait a minute, you guys proclaiming a Jesus Day? Yeah, because if it's a Jesus Day, that's okay, man. I'm down with it. Okay, well, I can do that. I think we can get, while we have Governor Landry there, I think we can get the Sacred Heart devotion. I think we should start a petition drive, and we should ask our fellow Catholics to sign it. We can start it right here at St. Patrick's. Go to any church and say, hey, would you guys consider signing this petition? Send it to the governor. We can have Father write the consecration prayer. Or you could just take an old one and just change the proper nouns in it, right? The Immaculate Heart will be more difficult. But once we're under the enrollment and we're under the protection in the state of our Lord's Sacred Heart, he loves his mother too, more than we do. So to then say, well, we want to honor the Blessed Virgin and ask the Sacred Heart again, we go to the Holy Face. So I think that the Sacred Heart is definitely doable. Imagine the city of New Orleans as wretched and stated as it's in today. Imagine the city of New Orleans being enrolled under the Sacred Heart and asking for the protection of Jesus of the city of New Orleans to make it Catholic once again. 4, plan to develop public acts of Catholic piety and devotion, like Eucharistic processions. Now, I understand that in a Eucharistic procession, we're in the city of New Orleans, that you want to walk slow and not run because somebody with a gun is chasing you to shoot you. But I think that Jesus will protect us, and that, have you done Eucharistic? We need more of them. And we need to get to our brothers and sisters in Christ who are going to the new Mass. These are good people. These are great people. They're wonderful Catholics. It's a matter of exposure, I think, to things that are traditional and in a friendly kind of way, right? So I encourage processions, do them, more of them. Do the rosary on the Marian High Feast days. Don't do it in there, do it out there. Go to City Park, walk around City Park. Something. And to prove to you that this works, how many know about Father Champon? And the river, on the Feast of the Assumption, the river devotion, which started like 15 years ago with a speedboat, a bateau, a pirogue, and Father with the single monstrance on Bayou Teche, LA 31, and grew from there. I was at it this year. I was in Destrehan under the Luling Bridge, or in Luling, and the monstrance is 15 feet tall. It's absolutely incredible. There was a parade of boats. They were squirting holy water with the fire hose.
You needed a crane to take it off.
They did need a crane, and it docked right here, right? They took it off and brought it to the cathedral. It was on the moonwalk, I believe, because they docked right here.
Docked right by the cathedral.
So don't tell me this can't be done, because Father Champon has done it. And again, he started with one boat, a bateau, and now look at that devotion. Those are public acts of Catholic piety. Wear your Catholicism on your sleeves. So now I'm going to give you my Father Garrett O'Brien impersonation. These are things of the faith that we all have to know. And I've learned them in the last 10 years. You know what the 4 marks of the church are, correct? You see, this sounds easy. Of course I know what the 4 marks of the church. 1, holy, Catholic, apostolic. Why do we Catholics not take the apostolic part seriously? The apostolic part is I think, the most important part for us mere humans. Because the apostolic part, what did an apostle do? He believed. But he's also willing to go out and be martyred if he had to. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be martyred. But what I'm saying is the apostolic part is kind of like an imperative command. It's an exhortation to go and to act all Catholic and stuff in public. If you do that, people notice. And it's simple things. I've been giving this talk, this end part, for 10 years now. I don't know how many converts I've made. When you're at a restaurant, don't worry about who's looking. Do your Catholic blessing. Sign yourself. Make sure that you sign yourself. Say that, bless us, O Lord, and these I guess we're about to receive from the bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen. For extra credit, say it in Latin loudly. Benedict nomen nos et hector dona quae du larda tarda summum ter per Christum Dominum. Say it in Latin loudly. And they'll go like, Protestants are very interested in our Latin. You know, it's the most ironic thing. I have Protestant friends, and I go over and pray, and they'll say, King Dude, will you do that Latin prayer for the meal? And they'll ask me to do the bill. And I'm like, sure. They're more interested in my Latin prayers for meals than the Archbishop of Charlotte. We'll just put it like that. So all of these things now, I just encourage all of you to just take your faith. It matters. It's important. We were put here at this point in time to do these things. You are making history right now. I'm making history. Father's making history. We're all making history here. And just, how do you want that history to turn out? If your grandchildren pick a history book up, what do you want them to read about you? That he ran? Or that, did you do like the guy in the movie Silence? I think Liam Neeson, did you apostatize when they cornered you? And I don't think we even have to go to those extremes. But I do think it's important. And I think that Catholics in Louisiana once upon a time were known as Louisiana Catholics. You were known as Catholics first, and then or Louisianas, and then Catholics. There's a reason why, and I hear this, I'm a radio host, and I've been for 34 years. I've been international for about 20. And I can tell you, no one that I've ever met, and I've been to the Latin Mass in 3 countries, 17 states now in 3 countries. I've never met anyone that ever comes to this land of ours and doesn't have great things to say about it. And the first thing they usually tell me, goes, man, why are you people so friendly? And it's the grace. It's the grace of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in this place being founded by Catholics. That matters. De La Salle planted a crucifix at the mouth of the Mississippi River and read a 4-page long prayer consecrating this land to Jesus, to our Lord, and to the Catholic Church, and then also to the King of France. There's a reason why the world thinks we have the best food. Our food is great. It's fantastic. But it's in the Cajun food, right? The Cajun name is known across the world. Well, don't say Cajun. You just say, oh, you love our Catholic food. I tell Cajuns, and they go like, I never thought of that. It's all because we're Catholic. It's not that's not an accident. And people love us, and they love Catholic New Orleans. Now, even the Mardi Gras is a Catholic thing. Now, they've turned it into a sin fest, but at the end of the day, it's Fat Tuesday. It's your last day to party. Carnival, what does it mean in Latin? Carnivale, goodbye meat, right? So the colors, the purple, green, and gold, that's the Epiphany colors, basically, right? Gold, incense, and myrrh. So many of the traditions that this city is known for. The Superdome is the genius of a papal knight. Dave Dixon was a papal knight. He was a Catholic. Dave Dixon got Pete Rozelle, the Jew, got him to not make the announcement of the New Orleans Saints franchise on the day that Rozelle wanted to do, and he said, no, I want you to come here and be here on November 1st, All Saints Day. And people go, well, how come your team's named the Saints? Because we're a Catholic city. Our football team screams Catholicism. Our fleur-de-lis is the symbol of what? French Catholic kings. It is an ancient symbol. The lily flower, it's literally translated, is literally a Catholic symbol, and the only one in all of sports. So, what are we waiting for? All right, I close all my talks with a quote from G.K. Chesterton. Now, how many of you read Chesterton or have read Chesterton? Okay, all right, got a couple. That's good. And because I love Chesterton, and they had a case to canonize him, and I'm glad that they stopped it, because they would have removed all of his works from the public libraries if he was canonized as a saint. If he was Saint Chesterton, his works would be attacked and assaulted by the enemy. So I'm glad that they stopped his case. But he was a late convert in life, and he was probably the greatest English Catholic, second only to maybe, of the last century, he was probably the greatest. I don't know, Belloc was right there too. All right, so my Chesterton quote. Modernity is not democracy. Machinery is not democracy. The surrender of everything to trade and commerce is not democracy. Capitalism is not democracy, and is admitted by trend and savor rather against democracy. Plutocracy, by definition, is not democracy. That is why many men are now beginning to say that the democratic ideal is no longer in touch with the modern spirit. I strongly agree, and I naturally prefer the democratic ideal, which is at least an ideal, and therefore an idea, to the modern spirit, which is simply modern, therefore already becoming ancient. I notice that the cranks, whom it would be more polite to call the idealists, are already hastening to shred this ideal. A well-known pacifist with whom I argued in radical papers in my radical days, and who then passed as a pattern Republican of the New Republic, went out of his way to say the other day to say, the voice of the people is commonly the voice of Satan. The truth is that these liberals never did really believe in popular government, any more than in anything else that was popular, such as pubs or the Dublin sweepstakes. They did not believe in the democracy they invoked against kings and priests, but I did believe in it, and I do believe in it, though I much preferred to invoke it against prigs and faddists. I still believe it would be the most human sort of government if it could be once more attempted in a more human time. G.K. Chesterton. And thank you very much. I have something for you.